Be afraid of us, for we are the knock on your door when you're home alone. We are the noise you hear in the middle of the night. We are the ones standing at the foot of your bed, watching you sleep. Be afraid, for we are all these things, and we are positively fiendish.
A.A. Milne wrote, "No one can tell me, nobody knows, where the wind comes from, where the wind goes." Very insightful from a guy famous for stories about a teddy bear. Look, you don't understand. And you don't understand because you don't know the secret. I'm going to change that. I'm going to tell you the secret. I shouldn't, but it's important that you know. And lucky, I'm only going to tell you the wind. Yeah, that. It's alive. Scout's honor. Cross my heart, no bullshit. The wind is alive. Every time it blows, it picks up spores, bacteria, mites, 1,000, no, 1,000,000 other organisms. They live together, merge, and become this entity, this loving beast. Hear that? She knows we're talking about her. She knows I'm telling you about her. But don't worry. There's no danger as long as I'm here. She chose me. She chose me to be her brother, her lover, soldier. But let me go back. 32 years ago, my folks lived on a farm in Indiana, and as often happens in the Midwest, the whole area was being ripped to shit by an enormous black tornado. My mother, 9 months pregnant and counting, suddenly selfishly chose that moment to go into labor in the dark dankness of our storm center. And the bare overhead bulb swung back and forth as my father, experienced in birthing calves, now had his thick, calloused hands between my mother's thighs, pulling me, screaming from that cow into this world, while razor-like winds shrieked and cried and railed on the surface of the ground, frustrated that it was being denied the kiss of my flesh. They were bad, my parents. Bad people. True, they fed me and clothed me and said they loved me when they tucked me into bed at night. But it was a lie. When the wind blew against the house, blew through the black midnight, rattling the glass pane of my window, I would creep from under my covers and throw open the shutter. She entered my room, swirling around, blowing papers off my desk and knocking pictures off the walls. "Your parents are bad," she told me. "They will sin. And we will punish them. You and I punish them." This went on every night until one morning my mother found snow in my room and my father nailed the shutter down. The wind screamed and howled outside, but I could do nothing. On the outside, I would smile sweetly from my mother and kiss her cheek as she bathed me and politely set the table for dinner. But inside my brain was a smoking stack of burning embers that could only be seen if you stared into my eyes. Stared deeply. So I waited. Years later, I lit the candles on my birthday cake and watched them burn blood red as my parents argued over the dinner table. My mother had gotten me a pocket knife, Duquesne with a dark oak handle, but father thought the price was too high. He snatched the blade and stormed out of the house to work in the barn, his go-to place. Crying, I bolted out of the kitchen into the dark fields. I ran and ran and ran and ran, the razor-like leaves of the cornstalks cutting me, slicing me, ripping at me, until finally, out of breath, I stood at the edge of a small clearing. The quarter moon was like the smile of the Cheshire cat, frightening in its beauty. Then she came, just a tickle around my cheek, intangible fingers tousling my hair. I felt a slight chill as she kissed the back of my neck, and my eyelids grew heavy as my clothes fell, pieces of cotton and denim to the dirt. Unseen, the breeze swirled around my naked frame, touching me, caressing me, stroking me to hardness. I inhaled her deeply into my lungs. She was inside me, around me, enveloping me like a storm of silk scarves, like an orgy of dragonflies. With a deep groan, I doubled over, spewing my first seed. Falling to my knees in the dirt, I was hers. Forever. My father didn't notice the barn door pushed open by unseen hands. He was sitting next to Cassie, our prize heifer, and I could hear sharp pings hitting a metal bucket as he squeezed her udder. Silently, I padded up to him, a crowbar behind my back. He grinned at the sight of me naked, then asked if I had come to be milked, and reached between my legs, pulling on me with a hand that had only gotten rougher with the passing years. A strong blast of wind tore around the barn, rattling tools and chains and leather straps. A second gust blew his cap off, parting his thinning hair down the middle, a target as good as a bullseye. Now, the wind whispered in my ear. Punish him. Punish him. I raised the crowbar over my head and swung it down as hard as I could. The sound of his skull cracking broke the night. Father fell off the stool, his body quivering on the ground for several seconds, then he was dead. Blood seeped around his head and shoulders, and I fished the knife from his pocket and walked back to the house. Mother was in the kitchen, throwing dishes against the wall, screaming "bastard" as they exploded into ceramic shards. She died quickly, eyes wide and staring as blood bubbled from her slit throat, and the wind roared triumphantly from room to room, no longer denied entrance. As the last wisp of air floated past her crimson lips, I thanked her for the birthday gift. No one can tell me, nobody knows, where the wind comes from, where the wind goes. It's kind of the theme here. I was free. Free as the wind. And we traveled, she and I, to towns small and big, to houses, schools, churches, parks, wherever the wind took me. Wherever there were people who would need to be punished. And there were a lot. I cut out the eyes of an optometrist in Topeka and slit the gut of a councilwoman in Mayfield. I chopped off the feet of a ballerina in Bar Harbor and watched her spasm in bloody tights while Swan Lake echoed throughout the studio. In Louisville, I nailed a carpenter's hands to his forehead before severing his carotid artery. I stopped off in Mount Olive for a two-arm ride, then held the cook's head in a vat of hot oil until he went limp and the skin slid off his face. These things I did, 16 at last count, and all at the urging of the wind, my love, my accomplice. Once, I asked what these people would do to deserve such punishment, but the question always went unanswered, so I'd simply shrug my shoulders and follow her. Follow the wind. Follow forever. I have to go. She's calling me. Thank you for listening. I rarely get to talk to anyone. Why you? I'll give you what she's never given me. An answer. I can't make it easy, though. Multiple choice. The day will come when she'll leave me. After all, she's eternal, and I'm not. She'll need someone to take my place. Someone who understands, like you do now. And that's the only thing I fear. Returning to the emptiness, the darkness, the silence. But for now, I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been. And then there's the other obvious answer. You're number 17. At any rate, you won't find out tonight. But the wind knows your evils. She knows where you live. And so do I. So, some night when tree branches creak and groan like dying old men, like a strange footstep on the stairs, and shutters bang against the house, and spirits moan a warning, and you think you hear a window opening and see my shadow in the doorway, simply close your eyes and remember, it's just the wind.